On this episode of the Not So Average Jane podcast, Chelsea Majeski, a Marine and two-time combat veteran, led some of the most dangerous, yet instrumental, missions in Iraq. She discusses the mental challenges she faced as a woman in the midst of operational decisions and the impact that has had on her nearly 20 years later. Yet she fights every day to thrive in memory and honor of those she lost along the way.
Thank you, everybody, for joining me again on the Not So Average Jane podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to my new friend, Chelsea Majeski. Chelsea, thank you for joining me. Thank you for dedicating some time. And ultimately, thank you for showcasing some vulnerability today and offering to share a story.
You're welcome. Hi, how are you?
So let's start from the beginning. Let's share with everyone maybe your enlistment story. I think that would be a great place to start.
Okay. 9/11 had happened and I was sitting in econ class. I originally wanted to go to school to be a police officer, and that was my ultimate goal. I had started school in high school as the where you do high school for half of the day and then you go to college for the other half of the day. After 9/11 happened and the trade towers got blown up, I decided to go a different route and join the Marine Corps. Originally, I was stepped into the Air Force for about a year, and I had two female cousins that were both Marines. And they told me, hey, I think that you would like the Marines better. We think that you need to switch branches. Come over to the dark side with us. And I did. I was scared. I didn't want to go to boot camp. I was scared to go to Air Force boot camp. I was petrified. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what would happen. I left when I was 19 to join the military, and honestly, it was the best thing that I ever did. It had its ups and downs, like anything else. I left Michigan. I went on a plane for my very, very first time to South Carolina. Parris Island is where I started, and I was there for 3 months. After your 3-month boot camp days are done, you have a 10-day leave period. So I went home. During that time, I spent time with my family and my friends, and then I had to go to MCT and MOS. And from there, I went to Okinawa, Japan. And I was the first 2-year tour in Okinawa. And they didn't tell us until the day before we left. So, I don't know if you've heard any stories about the Marine Corps, how the Marine Corps operates. Whenever something negative happens to you, we say that it's, the green weenie. So we pretty much got the big green weenie that day when they sat down and told us, hey, you're going to be in Japan for 2 years. I was only expecting to be there for 1 year, which wasn't a problem. Japan was amazing. It was beautiful. I'm glad that I had that experience. From there, I volunteered to go to Iraq. At 19 years old, I didn't know what to expect. I knew that there was a war going on, and I knew that I was joining during a wartime environment. I was motor T in the Marine Corps, so I was a 3533, which is an LVS operator, and it's a 40-ton truck without payload. They cross-trained all of the females in my platoon and my unit to be 50 cal gunners and 240 gunners, as well as operating the vehicles. So when I was in Iraq, I think I sent you a picture of me behind my 50 cal. I was a 50 cal and 240 gunner. I was not on the front lines with the guys, like kicking in doors and doing all of that in a sense, but I was on the front lines shooting back at people and, having rockets and mortars shot at us and finding dead bodies and whatever else it was that we experienced during that wartime environment. We did a lot of convoys. That's all I did out there. We got a presidential unit citation, from the president for our operations and what we did over there in Iraq. There was people that we lost out there, people that didn't come home with us. And now as a combat veteran, what I do on the side is I help other veterans that need help, possibly getting their comp and pen started or, helping with resumes to find a new job. I've made it a point to reach out to veterans and help them with their mental stability, because as a vet, it's hard. They send us to war, they train us, they turn us into technical killing machines, I guess, essentially. And then you do your job over there, and we come home and we have a 3-day grace period to unrelate ourselves to what was going on over there. So it was a challenge at 19.
Yeah, and I mean, you just ran us through an entire synopsis. So I want to take a few steps back. You said you initially joined the Air Force, and then there was a 2-year gap or waiting period. Or can you
I was depped into the Air Force for a year. Okay, so the DEP program is where you go before you join the military, and you can be in the DEP program for as long as you need to be until you actually leave. The DEP program teaches you how to do military cadence. It teaches you how to march. It teaches you military time, how to do your hair if you're a female, because the Marine Corps is really strict about female hair. Grooming, like the Marines we're a different breed. So the DEP program teaches you how to do all of the simple things that you need to know before you join the military. So I wasn't signed into the Air Force, and I wasn't an active duty Air Force personnel. I was just in the DEP program. So with the DEP program, you can still cancel out of whatever branch you were deciding to join. So I decided that I didn't want to do the Air Force anymore, and I went straight Marine Corps. And I was the first female to leave out of our Poolee station, which a Poolee station, when you're in the DEP program, you're called a Poolee because you're not in the military. So you're not a recruit at that point because you're not in boot camp, and you're not a private or a PFC or any of that because you're not active duty. I went straight into the Marines, and then I did 8 years. I did 4 years active duty, and then I decided to get out because of some personal issues. And then I decided that I missed it and I wanted to go back in. And at that point in time, they weren't taking back any active duty personnel that were prior. So I had to go active reserve. And I did my 4 years of active reserve time, the 2 weeks out of the year, 1 weekend a month. And from there, I was supposed to go to Afghanistan and Africa. I had orders to both places, but I had a tumor that was in my wrist and I was unable to go. The tumor ate my bone, and they had to take bone out of my pelvis and graft it into my wrist. So I was in a cast for 7 months, and the surgeon wouldn't clear me. So I was pretty devastated about that because I wanted to go. I have been to Iraq twice. It wasn't just a one-time pump. My second tour, I taught people how to train in combat situations out in Iraq, ironically. I taught them, I was a CVOT instructor, which is Combat Vehicle Operation and Terrains instructor. So I taught people how to drive in a combat situation because that's what I did my first tour. The first tour was a lot heavier than the second tour. The first tour, I seen people get killed. I had to shoot at people. We got shot back at. We had rockets and mortars that were hitting us every day. It was every day we went on a convoy. We were on a security halt because something was going on, and the second tour was more laxed. I was on Al-Assad. So essentially what I was doing was just instructing people and teaching them how to drive Humvees and 7 tons and LBSs. And then those people would go out on convoys and do their job. And these people that we were instructing were not motor T people. So we were giving them temporary licenses in Iraq to operate the vehicles that were needed to be operated. My MOS in the military was essential to the military because we're the ones that took all of the gear, all of the equipment, people that passed away, their white collapsible boxes with their personal belongings in it. We would haul them back to where they needed to be hauled, and then it would get shipped off back to their family. And all of the cans, I don't know if you've been to Iraq. I don't know your situation, but if you have, the cans, the trailers that are there, those are because that's what we did. We went to Baghdad and I went to Jordan, and we picked up all of these white not collapsible containers, but they're like little trailers essentially. Instead of living in a tent, we moved into these little trailers, and it had AC and a bed and a door. And it was like a nice little kind of trailer that you bunked up with another person. You know, originally when I first got there, we were living in a tent. It's called a GP tent, which is a general population tent. And there was a lot of other females in this tent with us. It was not just me. It was not just, you know, my staff sergeant. It wasn't my other girlfriend that I was there with. There was only 3 people in my platoon alone. Well, 3 females, I should say, in my platoon alone. So, we would live in these tents along with 17 other women. And eventually they moved us into the cans that we got to haul, and we lived in the can for 3 weeks. That was it. I mean, it was a pretty big deal to us because we lived in the tents, and then after we moved out of the tents, we burned them down, because the tents that you live in Iraq are doused in kerosene just in case anything happens. So all we had to do was ignite them, and then it kind of just demolished the rest of them in a row. It was like a domino effect. And the cans, you know, they had an actual bed, whereas in the tent I was living in, sleeping on a cot. And the Iraqis would come in our tent in the middle of the night and would go through our belongings. And there was one point in time that I remember very distinctively that I woke up and I thought I was dreaming, and there was a national going through our sea bags, and my best friend was sleeping next to me in her cot. And I don't know why, but I picked up her rifle instead of mine, and I loaded it. And when I loaded it and I racked around back, the guy ran out of the tent. So it wasn't very safe for us to be in those, I felt, as females, especially because our tent was in the middle of all of the male tents. So the male tents surrounded ours. And, you know, having the nationals come in there in the middle of the night and going through your stuff, it was a pretty scary situation. You know, it's bad that you're doing convoys and you have all of this stuff happening. And now on top of it, we had people coming in there in the middle of the night. And I thought I was dreaming until the next day, and I woke up and my staff sergeant and I were discussing it. And she's like, no, I saw you. She's like, I know that he was in there. So after that, we started Firewatch, and it was a Firewatch ordeal for the rest of the, I don't know, 9 months that we were there. We got stuck there a little bit longer than we were supposed to be. The day that we were supposed to leave Iraq, a mortar had hit the flight line. A couple of them had hit the flight line, and it put a bunch of holes in the flight line. So it had to be repaired before we were able to leave country. So I was stuck there for about 3 weeks longer, more than what I was supposed to be. So we had to go back to the tent. So during those 3 weeks that we were supposed to be leaving Iraq, we got to stay in the trailers. And then after all that happened, they put us back into the tent. So it was kind of a scary situation. You know, there was a lot of crazy critters out there too that you had to be cautious of, not just, you know, the Iraqis or, you know, the convoy issue. You know, there was sand vipers that we came across, and we would get bored and we would fight scorpions and mice together. And we would be like, oh, hey, the scorpion's fine. Like, and then 45 minutes later, the mouse would be dead. So we knew not to mess with anything out there. But, you know, at 19 years old and being a Marine and being out there and having nothing to do, we found stuff to do. But other than that, I mean, it was a pretty good time. I was married the whole time that I was in. So, you know, my ex-husband and I, we're still on pretty good terms. I mean, we talk. He's still active duty. He's remarried. But I mean, it was a fun time.
So 19, can you, I'm gathering this is around 2002, because you said shortly after 9/11. So I'm trying to break down for the audience the timeline. So 9/11 happens, it's 01. You decide you're going to go into the military. Then it was a 2-year DEP program that you were a part of. So now it's 2003.
2004 is when I joined.
So 2004 is when you went into the Marines.
I went to Iraq.
You went to Iraq in 2004. So you joined the Marines in 2003?
2004. 2004.
So the beginning. Okay, so join the Marines at the beginning in 2004, get through all of your training, deploy towards the end of 2004 for your first tour in Iraq. I want to go back to kind of, and again, explaining what your mission was. So a lot of convoy missions, motor T, 40-ton trucks, 50 cals, things of that nature. Can you kind of just break it down in focusing on that initial mission? Where maybe you were, what were some of your I guess I hate to word it this way, but like most memorable missions that you went on. Maybe just talk just a little bit about that first tour and what that was like and who you were there with and any challenges that you may have had. And yeah, we'll start there.
Yeah. So, being 19, I was scared. I was terrified to go on my first convoy. I didn't want to get killed. I didn't want to get shot. I didn't want to get blown up. I knew the circumstances and I knew the outcomes that could happen from these convoys. They put me on a working party when I first got to Iraq. We were attached to, so in Japan, I was with 3rd TSB and I was a red patcher for 2 years. I was ground unit for 2 years. So my first duty station, I was ground unit. My second duty station, I was air wing, completely two different entities in the Marine Corps. So my first tour, we went on convoys pretty much every day, if not every other day. We did them at night. We wouldn't go during the daytime because it was more safe at night for us. The enemy had a harder time seeing us. They had a harder time, getting us at that point. So we did blackout operations. So I drove with NVGs on, and we used cat eyes to determine where we were within the convoy. So you didn't turn your lights on at night when you operated these convoys. It was all pitch dark. I went to Iraq with 2nd TSB, which then later became CLR 25. And then I believe, I'm not fully sure of this, but I want to say CSSD 25 or 29 or something like that. I'm not positive, but it changed to CLR 25. And I know that it's changed again, so I don't know what the unit is now. But I went with 2nd TSB as a red patcher. So when we were there, we had red patches on our forehead and on both of our knees. And we stuck out like a sore thumb. Like
you explain for the civilians who have no idea what you're talking about, what a red patch is. Yeah.
Yeah. So back in the day when the Marine Corps was starting to establish, and when the Marine Corps, started allowing pogues, which are people other than grunts, to join the military. When you went on ship back in the day, it distinguished who was a grunt and who wasn't a grunt. So if you had a red patch on your head or on your knees, you didn't have to get off ship to go fight, because it wasn't our fight. It was the grunts' fight. So that is how they distinguished who was to get off ship and who wasn't to get off ship. These days, it's not like that. I cross-trained on the 50 cal, cross-trained on the 240. And as a female, I operated both of those weapon systems in Iraq. I would mount the 50 cal by myself on the truck. I would break it down into pieces because the 50 cal is 120 pounds. Yeah. So I couldn't just carry it up into the turret by myself. And my gunner, I love him to death. My A driver, we were teammates. He would never help me because he told me to do it myself. And at that time, we really hated each other, this guy and I. And pretty much we wanted to kill each other. And our staff sergeant was like, no, you guys are going to become gun buddies. That's what we called each other. We're gun buddies. And you're going to like each other. Now this guy is my best friend. I couldn't imagine life without him. So it worked. But
I would imagine I would appreciate, and tell me if you feel the same. I'm getting the hint that you do, but I would appreciate, as tough as it would be, for him not being like, oh, well, you're a female, so let me go ahead and help you. Like, there's no chivalry in the military, right? And I want to be treated as an equal, but at the same time, I recognize that, I'm 5'4" and 120 pounds, so I can't do something that a 6 foot, 250 pound man can do. I'm aware of that. But even like a man my size also couldn't do that. So, but I can appreciate that he gave you the benefit of the doubt to just do it yourself. And if you needed help, you probably asked for it. So I just kind of want to like pause and say like, yeah, that's pretty awesome that you had that teammate. And that's probably why you guys developed such a great friendship.
Yeah. So, I mean, we didn't just go on convoys together every time, but for the most part, they made us gun buddies so that we would get along with each other. Because, I mean, literally, we wanted to just choke each other out. Like, and I don't know why we like each other. We clashed, like for whatever reason. And now he's just amazing. I can call him and he'll come to me, or, if he needs help, I can go to him. But the camaraderie in the military is definitely a huge thing, and it's one of the biggest things that I personally miss, because I didn't become friends with these people. I became family.
Yeah.
And living in Okinawa for 2 years, and I explain this to my family all the time. I lived there for 2 years and I didn't have them. I didn't have my family. If I needed somebody, I needed to go to somebody that was in my unit.
Right.
I became really good friends with a girl that I went to boot camp with in MCT, which is Marine Corps Combat Training, and then our MOS school. And we went to Japan together, and we went to Iraq together. This girl and I were inseparable. I mean, completely inseparable. And she just retired, and I drove 33 hours from Florida to California to watch her retire. I made sure that I was going to be there for her, and we started the journey together, and I wanted to finish it together. So
that type of loyalty has kind of come up on every podcast that I have, and we've all agreed up to this point, and I think you'll fall in line, is that the sense of loyalty is just the meaning and the definition is on a whole nother level within the military. And it's hard to find outside of the military. When I transitioned out, I went into law enforcement. So it was a fairly seamless transition. It wasn't too big of a difference. But after 10 years, I went into corporate America. And that is where I had my culture shock. That is where I had people, saying one thing to my face and then turning around and basically backstabbing and stepping on me to get to wherever they are. And that, I mean, it happens, but it's not prominent. 99% of the people in the military don't have that mentality. And like you said, you may hate each other, you may want to choke each other out, but at the end of the day, when bullets are flying, like, that the person to the left and right of you has your back no matter what, and them as well. And that just, again, I can't explain it. It's hard to define, but I've noticed through any conversation with military and then law enforcement here and even first responders, it's something that is just on a whole nother level in depth.
It is, and it's hard to explain. You try and explain it to a civilian and they don't understand. They could be like, oh, well, I have a best friend. Like, I understand. No, you don't. You don't understand, because these people, you're in Iraq, you're getting shot at, there's it's a deadly situation. You don't know if you're going to come home. You don't know if the person to your right or left is going to make it home. You really step up to the plate and you really protect each other, and it becomes a whole different type of connection. And I try and explain it, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, you don't get it. Because my family is like, oh no, like, we understand. Like, we know what you're going through. No, you don't understand what I'm going through. You really don't. You didn't watch people get shot at. You didn't watch people get blown up. You didn't find dead bodies. You didn't wait 17 hours for a daisy chain IED to be detonated. Our convoy found the second largest daisy chain in the war of the OIF war. It was a 27 daisy chain IED. We had to wait 17 hours for EOD to be flown in to detonate these, and we weren't allowed to sleep. We had to stay awake during those 17 hours, because you had to be in the turret. You couldn't just fall asleep, because if you start getting shot at, or you start getting mortared, or rockets start flying in, you need to be aware of what's going on. And, there was a lot of different situations that I went through. I had a possible VBIED one time coming at the convoy, and I radioed in, hey, possible VBIED to the right. And they called back, go ahead and do what you need to do. You know, I did the shout, shove, show, shoot. I did everything that I was supposed to do. But when these people got closer to me and they were starting to come into the convoy, and this, I don't feel that women should be in combat. And this is part of why I don't feel this, because we have a different mentality than men do. Men have a mentality of let's kill this, let's kill that. Even with hunting, you go hunting. I'm an avid hunter, but there's things, you know, that you just, women are not mentally, I think, the same as men for this mentality of going to combat. And you know, the VBIED that I thought it was coming into our convoy. And you know, I picked up my M16 and I pointed it at the guy. He still wouldn't pull over. His wife, I'm assuming was his wife, was sitting in the passenger side and she had a baby on her lap. In Iraq, they don't use car seats. You know, the little baby was sitting on her lap. And I don't know if you've been to combat or if you've been to war, or if you know how it works in convoys, but when you start shooting on a vehicle, you start from the passenger side on the ground, you work your way up to the grill and then the window, and then you go over to the driver's side to give that person a chance in case it's not a VBIED. Now, if I would have shot, like I had the opportunity to, and I had the go ahead to open fire, I would have killed that lady and her baby. But at the same time, if it wasn't a VB, or if it was a VBIED, they could have injured the convoy or killed us. So when I pointed my M16 at the guy, he still didn't pull over. He had no regard to pull over. He didn't care. He just was going to do what he was going to do, because in Iraq, they don't listen to women. And he could tell that I was a woman. You can clearly tell, you know, especially when you're in the turret, you can tell that somebody's a man or a woman. So I unlocked my 240, because that day I was on the 240, and I swung my turret around and he pulled over and stopped immediately. I thank God every day that he pulled over and stopped, because if I would have killed that lady and that baby, I don't know what I would have done. You know, we found dead bodies. We found a dead body with a note that had, you know, it had a knife in his chest, and the note said, "This is what happens when you work for the Americans." There was a lot of stuff that we went through out there. You know, the kids alone, the Iraqi kids would jump up on our trucks during the convoys, and they would try to get into our vehicles and try to steal the food off from our catwalks on the truck. So I would always keep a box of MREs inside the truck with me, and I would just throw it. I threw the MREs to the kids because they were hungry, they were starving, and you could tell, you know, they would beat each other up to get the food. And I understand that they were trying to kill us, but at the same time, I'm human. I'm human. I'm not a robot. And that's what they do. They turn us into killing machines, and then they don't bring us home. Not fully. I'm not fully home. You know, a part of me died over there. It really did. Everything that I saw, everything that I experienced, I would not wish on my worst enemy. You know, I have nightmares. I have flashbacks. I have a service dog that I have to take everywhere with me. You know, a normal person doesn't have to take a dog with them everywhere, or a normal person doesn't have nightmares about, you know, Iraq and what you did over there. It's a whole different situation, and each branch of the military are completely different in the way that we do things over there. And I don't think people quite understand that. You know, everybody that goes over there, a lot of the civilians say that we're baby killers. But if I was a baby killer, I had the opportunity to do it. Why didn't I do it? You know, we have hearts, and we have
Generalization, I've realized, is just are people who are making uneducated statements. And I've tried very hard to choose empathy, in that, okay, as much as I want I feel the anger come to the surface, and I just want to chew them a new ass and lay them straight on what they clearly have no idea about. I've recently, this has been a recent development, part of my healing journey, in that I just try to give them the grace to realize that they're uneducated and naive in it. And most times I end up walking away from those situations, because they're people could be very stubborn, right? And there's no point of getting all fired up about it, and you having to basically in mine, I start having flashbacks of all the things, all the evidence, if you will, that would prove them wrong. But like, I don't need to defend myself. I know what I did. I know what my sisters did. I know what my brothers did. Like, we were there, right? So, but yeah, there are a lot of uneducated individuals out there that have a very strong opinion and aren't willing to an open and controversial conversation. And that is kind of one of my missions with this podcast is I'm hoping, yes, it's becoming this community of badass women, quite frankly. But it's also an opportunity for those who don't know, whether it's they don't have a person that went through combat, went through the military, or anything in between, or if they're just fed whatever information that they seem to get off of social media. So, you know, here is a platform now where you can hear the stories, you can hear the first site perspectives of not only individuals, but women. And like you've said a couple like really in-depth, amazing things that have given me goosebumps all over my body, and I wrote them down. And one, both I kind of want to get into, but one, you say, I don't believe women should be in combat. And I want to have a conversation around that, because up until the Iraqi war, women weren't really in combat. There were nurses who were out there picking up pieces and parts during Vietnam and Korea and everything in between. But they weren't actively engaging. They were more reacting to what war was. And for us to you know, not that long ago, just 20 years ago, go in and be put in situations where you're making a decision, okay, am I going to shoot this vehicle up and knowingly kill a woman and her child because this asshole's driving at me irately and might be trying to harm us? You're right. You're 100% right. Our mentality between women and men are significantly different. We're supposed to be the nurturer, right? We're supposed to fix things and kiss boo-boos and make meals that make you feel, you know, whole from the inside out. We're not the destroyer, the hunter, you know, we're the gatherer. So it's a very valid point that you say. But with all of that said, right, we went there, Chelsea. We went to war. And you said something else. They turn us into killing machines, but that's essentially what yes, they have their part, but we also, I feel very strongly that we also need to accept accountability and that we made that choice as well.
Yes.
You know, we went into the military. That was our choice. And especially like you joined post 9/11, you knew to a certain degree what you were signing up for. So we make this choice, and the repercussions and the consequences of those choices catch up with us eventually, you know? Yep. And I don't think we fully understand, and not just we, I think even the men, right? I don't think anyone fully understands the impact that combat has on us. And most recently, I was talking to a gentleman, and you know, we discuss physiological wounds all the time. You know, Purple Hearts are given out because of these physical wounds. But what we don't really talk about and what we don't acknowledge, and I don't believe there's a medal for, is the moral wounds that we have. The wounds that are on the inside that you can't see and that you can't really describe, because if you do, you're probably going to break down in tears.
Yeah.
And so when you said, and it hits me on a whole nother level, that part of you died over there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So it's been a battle, you know, it's been 20 years, and even 20 years later, I'm still broken. You know, putting the pieces back together has been harder than what people think it is. You know, and I'd say women shouldn't be over there, because what I saw, it's burned into my mind. And I went and I had to have another evaluation done for my PTSD. And the lady told me, and this is her words, you need to put it into the back of your mind and just get rid of it. And I said to her verbatim, have you ever been to war? And she said, no, I haven't. I said, then you would not know what it's like to live with what I live with on a daily basis. I said, you don't close your eyes and you don't put yourself back in Iraq 20 years ago. I said, I have a service dog that's trained to wake me up when I have these nightmares. I have a service dog that's trained to do pressure therapy on me when I start having anxiety or panic attacks. I said, do you have to live with that every day? Because I guarantee that you don't.
Right.
And she was like, you're right. I don't. And I don't know what you've gone through or what you're going through. The only thing I can tell you is that you need to dispatch of the memories. And I said, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. I said, I wish it were that easy. I said, with you being a mental health person, you of all people should know that it's not that easy, and
Wow.
and I wasn't, we didn't know really when I went to Iraq, we didn't know what we were going to be doing over there right off the bat. You know what I mean? They told us that we would be doing convoys and that we would be cross-trained on the weapons. And that was all we knew. When we got there, and they really told us what was going to be going on, that's when I got scared. I knew that there was a possibility that I was going to die. And
I think some of the most dangerous missions there and are any type of convoy mission, because you're traveling the unknown, and there's literally roadblocks, we'll call them roadblocks, but obstacles at every juncture, and you're literally a moving target. It's one of the most dangerous missions. It's not, okay, we're going to go infiltrate this town or this building. Like, you plot and you plan and you move into it, and and can expect what is going to be on the other side of the door. And so when you shared that your primary mission was convoys and convoy security, it's a new day every day, literally a new challenge, a new struggle, a new enemy, a new territory, new ground.
Mothers of America tried to shut us down numerous times, actually, while we were out there, because they found out that the females were on the front lines and that we were 50 cal gunners and we were 240 gunners. Now, I don't know, it was June 27th or June 29th of 2005. There was a 7-ton of females. I don't know if you've heard about this or if you know what I'm talking about. There was a 7-ton full of females. They were coming back from doing the Lioness program. And the Lioness program is where we would search the women because we tried to still respect their boundaries, because we were in their country. We did invade their country, but at the same time, we were there because of what happened here. So just like what's going on now with Israel in what is it, Palestine, I don't even keep up with it because I don't, it triggered. So, and with that situation, I would prefer that they sent me back. I would prefer that they sent back the combat veterans that have already been there and done it. We know what to do. Now they're sending in new kids, which they signed up for this. Like you said, we signed up for it. But at the same time, if this war does pop off and these kids get sent in, now they're going to have to deal with what we are 20 years later. And it's not fair. And we've already been dealing with it. We've already been there. We've seen it. We've done it. We know what to do. So I feel that they need to send us back to finish the job. I don't think that the job is done. It's not done. No. So, but at the same time, it's kind of, women shouldn't be there, but we're there. I did what I did. I seen what I saw. There's a lot of other things that happened. Anyways, the 7-ton of females got blown up. It hit an IED. And there was a girl in there that I went to boot camp with and MCT with and MOS with. Her name was Cody. I'm not going to say her last name, but her first name is Cody. And she was in that truck of 7 females, and she survived. Now, the gunner that was in the 710 didn't survive, and I had ate lunch with that person a couple of days prior. We lost a good friend out there, Tucker. He died. His Humvee rolled. I talk to his mom a lot. She's on my Facebook. And I feel that with the people's families that have passed away, that it's kind of good in a way for us to keep in contact with our brothers or sisters that have passed away with their families, because we can tell each other stories and we can keep their memory alive and we can keep going for them. I fight every day to keep going because of them, because they gave the ultimate sacrifice for us to continue living. And I've lost a lot of friends out there, a lot. Jennifer Parcell, she was one of the females that got killed in the Lioness program. I was extremely good friends with her. Jason Smith, he was motor T and he became an EOD tech. He lat moved, which move means that you're switching jobs within the military. And, so he lat moved to be an EOD tech, which is an explosive ordnance, device. He went out and he looked for the IEDs to blow them up, and he stepped on it. He stepped on one. And I was extremely good friends with him and his wife, and we lost him, and it's not just the combat related issues that you have PTSD from. We're losing brothers and sisters. You, like I said, we become family with these people, and now that we're losing them, it kind of puts a damper onto your thoughts. And do I want to continue living? Do I want to continue doing this life? Because they died for me, and it should have been me. We have that survivor's guilt. I have survivor's guilt. And if I could change back time, I would reverse everything. I just can't. And it hurts because now these new kids are getting ready to possibly go into war, and it kills me because they're going to have to deal with what I deal with, and it's not fair to them. And I'm not going to get much into that because I'm not a political person at all. I don't do anything with politics, but I just feel that they should send in people that have already been there and that know what they're doing, because it took a lot of training. And with what's going on right now, the people that are there, they didn't get, I don't think, the proper amount of training. They didn't know that this was going to pop off. It took me 7 months to train, 6 months to train for Iraq. And it was an in-depth training that we had to do. It was very vigorous. And I feel bad for these kids that are getting ready to go in. I do.
Yeah. I feel you for sure. I was one that we only had, I think, 2.5, 3 months training before we were over, and we were not ready, but that's, you just deal with it. So I feel that, and I agree with you. But unfortunately there are situations that it's like, what do you do? Right? Well, time for some on the job training, which is not the place to do on the job training in the middle of combat, but it happens. It happens. The military is a different animal, ladies and gentlemen, if you have never been exposed to it. I've said it many times. It's a whole nother world. It's rules and no rules at times. And I will say, with all of those things in mind, what the military gave me above all that I grasp and love is my resourcefulness, right?
Yeah.
That's like, oh, I got a piece of duct tape, this piece of metal over here and a beanie, but we need fuel. Somehow, like, we're gonna make it happen to where we're gonna turn fuel out of those 3 things and get us to where we need to be. So yeah. So 2 tours to Iraq during your 4 years active duty.
Yep.
How long of a break before you went into the reserves?
I got off active duty in 2008. And then it was about 4 months later that I decided I wanted to go back in. So I went straight back in. If I could go back into the military now, I would. I don't feel like, I'm a medical assistant right now. and I just graduated with medical billing and coding degree. So I have 2 college degrees, but I don't feel like I'm productive enough, I guess. Not, I don't know how to put it. I don't feel like I'm doing, do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, and I
There's
can
a
help you
hole.
put the words, I can help you put the words to paper because I just had this conversation last month and I didn't have the words either. But the way that this gentleman put it was so like he took the words out of that I couldn't say. And that is that military need, 100% need a mission with a sense of purpose. And if
Yes.
we don't have those 2 things, we feel lacking, we feel a void, there's something missing. And sometimes that dwindles us down into a dark place. And sometimes that motivates us into creating nonprofits. Sometimes that motivates us into helping other veterans get their disability claim in order, like you're doing. But the way when he was explaining it, he was actually explaining it to the city and trying to get this program started called Vet Ready, and that where businesses and corporations come in and they go through this whole training and program to understand how to better accommodate veterans in transition and be better employers for them.
Yeah.
And when he was trying to explain it, he's like, you can't just hire a vet and expect them to just like work 9 to 5. Like they need a sense of mission and purpose, or they don't feel whole. And they're
Yes.
always going to be searching and seeking. So that, like, I feel like that's what you're talking about. Is
Sense
that?
of purpose. Yes, that's what I was looking for. Sense of purpose. And
Yeah.
even medical assistant, I'm in the medical field. I help people. I give injections and I triage wounds and I do all that. I'm lost. I'm
I'm looking
lost.
for something more impactful, it
Yeah.
sounds like.
Mm-hmm. And so, that's where I started doing the monthly chats with veterans because, a year ago next month, I lost a good friend to suicide. My grandfather was a combat veteran and he shot himself last year as well. He was 80 some years old and shot himself. He just couldn't handle it anymore either. And, I'm tired of all these people committing suicide and the VA not helping us properly or the mental health people not helping us properly. They medicate us. And I don't know what your take is on medical marijuana, but they had me zombied out. I was maxed out on Zoloft and Ambien and Klonopin, and I felt like a walking zombie. I was emotionless. So I stopped all of that and I started the national or natural remedies, and I started smoking medical marijuana. It helped me. It helped me sleep at that time. It helped me, with my anxiety. It helped me with the other issues that I was experiencing with pain or with whatever else, the depression. And then it really worked, so I stuck to that, and I'm a huge advocate for it, especially with veterans, because it's helped my PTSD, it's helped me sleep, it's helped with the nightmares, because it puts me in such a deep sleep that I don't dream.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's definitely different things that we can do and that they can do for us, but like I said, I feel like they left a part of me over there, and
Yeah.
I didn't fully come home, and I'm still not fully home, mentally and physically. you know um I had to have back surgery done from something that had happened, and now I'm getting ready to have a fusion done in my neck, for C4, C5, and C6. And I have a fake disc in my back, and I'm getting ready to have a spinal cord stimulator implanted. And I'm gonna be like a legitimate robot because I'm gonna have all of this titanium in my body and all of these pins and plates and
Yeah.
screws, and a spinal cord stimulator. It's like a little cigarette pack for the battery pack, and they cut me open and they stick it inside my body, and there's leads that attach into your spine and it stops the pain. I don't want any of this. This wasn't what I signed up for.
Right.
So I mean,
Just pack that all in a box and throw it in the back of your brain, Chelsea, and you'll be just fine.
right?
So don't yell at me, but maybe we need to have a sidebar conversation after this I literally just started my VA claim process. I've been out since 2007. I was in Iraq in '03. And when I got out of the military, actually, when I came home from deployment, people were going in seeking help and they were getting their security clearances ripped from them. So I heard of that and I was like, well, F that, because literally my entire career to this day, I still hold a top secret security clearance, has been rested upon that. And if I would have had that taken from me, I mean, who knows what my career would have turned into. So I've avoided it like the plague. And then writing the book and reliving 2003 and going on my healing journey for the last year and a half in regular holistic therapy, not the traditional things. I just started my VA claim. I had my first appointment on Tuesday, and the physician, I think it's like they have to ask you at the end of any visit, are you having suicidal thoughts? And I somewhat sarcastically said, not currently. And I just kind of waited there, and she, no joke, like took her chair and moved. And she's prior military. She shared a little bit that she had some PTSD and had dealt with it. I don't know her whole story. I wasn't there for her story, right? But she says to me, well, you have children and you can't kill yourself because you have kids, because then they'll be more likely that they'll probably kill themselves. And so you need to just suck it up and you need to like not do that, and you need to think of them. That was her professional feedback to me. And thank God that I've been in, holistic therapy for a little over a year, and I can lean on her. And I had an appointment that afternoon with her, leaving there, because I couldn't help but just feel like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, if I was fresh out, like, and that's what you told me, well, how about that you just laid like 300 more pounds of guilt on me for even having these thoughts? Like, that's not going to help me from pulling the trigger. Like, honest to God, like that would have sent me over the edge if I hadn't been. So yeah, I left pissed. I'm like, thanks, VA. I appreciate it. So then I go to the psychologist in the same day, and she was actually great, but she's like, okay, well, with the, the nightmares and the sleeping and the this and the that, I'm going to have this psychiatrist call you and he can help get you on a medical plan. And I looked at her, I said, I don't want to feel numb. I've tried that before. And so like when you say like you're on these 7 different medications and you're walking around like a zombie, like, is that living? That's not living. That's just being. That's what, like, how can you be a friend, a daughter, a mother, a wife, how can you even be those things? You might as well just be a living off of a machine with brain dead and walking around. And so, yeah, the VA can do better. Like, you guys can do better. I don't know. I don't know how to make it better. I don't know if it's continuing to share our stories, if it's continuing to say, no, you guys are doing a horrible job. But something needs to give, something needs to change. And I mean, I've avoided it for 19, 20 years because I was too scared to have something that I earned ripped away from me. I was scared of being punished.
Yep. And that's what, like if you have your medical marijuana card, the VA won't give you any sort of like pain medicine. And that's not for them to decide that, there's a lot of veterans that use MMJ because it does make us feel better. It makes us feel whole. And I was suicidal at one point in time in my life. In 2012, when I got out of the military, I wrote some suicide letters to my family, and they were all written out and they were in the envelopes, and they had the names to each person that they were supposed to go to. I had a plan. I was going to do it. And then literally I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And I had to think for a while to myself. It took me a couple of days, to figure out what it was that I needed or what it was that I wanted to do. And one day while I was at school, I called my mom and I told her, hey, look, I'm pregnant. Like, I just found out. But on top of it, I have these suicide letters that I wrote to you guys because I'm done with life and I just don't want to do this anymore. My mom talked me off the ledge. Hey, look, you're growing another human inside your body. If you take your life right now, you're not just killing yourself, but you're killing your baby as well. So I burnt the suicide letters, and now I've got 3 beautiful children. I'm married for my second time, and we live in Florida. We own our home. I just bought a brand new car. Like, I couldn't have done any of this, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without the military. It made me grow up. At 19 years old, I had to grow up. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't just be a 19-year-old that was off partying somewhere and living life and living carefree and not worrying about, or worrying about what I was going to do the next day. Like, I knew what I was going to do. I had a very strategic timeline that I had to go by because I was active duty. And, we got up at 0300 in the morning to go PT in Japan because it was so hot in the morning. And then, we would go to work, we would do work, we would have lunch or chow, we would work a day. It's a normal job. People think that we go to the military in active duty and that it's not some normal job that we just fuck off or we do whatever. No, it's like a job. You go into the military and you work on the trucks. We would break down tires, we would rebuild the tires, we would make sure all of the SL3 gear was put into the trucks properly. You have to make sure that the trucks are clean, that they're fueled. It's not, and then we don't just sit there every day. We take these trucks and we haul equipment and we haul food and we haul gear to other bases that are around us. And I was on the typhoon team. So when typhoons happened, I would take a 7-ton and I would haul the water bowls to each, different base or food so that they didn't run out of food and water. These are just things that people don't think about that we do in the military. Like, we do more behind the scenes of the military than what civilians realize that we do, and I've been told before that, I'm a female and that I didn't rate to go and do what I did. Well, that might be the case, but here's the fact of the matter is I had the balls to join and I had the balls to sign that dotted line. And I went to Iraq and I did what I had to do and I survived. I'm, like I said, I may not have survived fully to the extent that not you, but like the civilians are, and I'm not fully mentally here anymore, but I'm still here. And I did what I had to do so that you guys could still live your jobs and live your normal lives here. Because when we were over there getting shot at and getting hit by rockets and getting hit by mortars and IEDs, you guys were over here living life, still doing your job, still working, taking care of your kids, not understanding or knowing what goes on over there. And, and it is 2 different worlds. In the military, we have the UCMJ that we have to abide by and the regular civilian laws. So it's not like
double process, double smacked.
Exactly.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that. And it's so, my oldest is 18, believe it or not. And so, he graduated this past spring. And so some of his friends are entertaining the idea of going in the military. And so they would be like, oh, I'm going to go in the Army. I'm going to be a Marine. I'm going to go in the Air Force. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, what are you going to do? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm going to go in the Army. I'm going to be a Marine. I'm going to go. And I'm like, no, like, so like we're in this world and then there's the military world, but there's still like careers and jobs and things that get done. Like, everything that's in the civilian world is also in the military world. And oh, by the way, they can double smack you. So if you get in trouble and you want to go get a DUI, like in the civilian space, well, military is going to come back and backhand you, right simultaneously as the civilian world is smacking you on the other side. So yeah, it's not talked about. But I mean, even when I enlisted, I didn't realize all those things. I also didn't realize that there was a 8-year obligation, no matter what, right? So Chelsea, 2 tours, recommitting yourself into the Marines because, well, quite frankly, you still needed that mission and purpose and camaraderie that I think we all search for once we get out. What are some things that are helping you to heal, some things that are helping to bring you closure? What are some things that you've tried that maybe didn't work but might work for others and that have also helped work for you?
So I don't know if you've heard about PTSD retreats. Have you ever heard of any of them?
I have recently, but I've never been to one.
Okay. So I do these quite often, actually. I have been to the Lone Survivor Foundation program, and that one was in Texas. My husband got to go at one point in time with me. My kids got to go at one point in time with me, and then you go by yourself. So the Lone Survivor Foundation does it so that you can go 3 times. You can go by yourself, you can go with your spouse, and then you can go with your spouse and your kids, and it's completely paid for. So a lot of veterans don't know this. A lot of veterans, think that if they do these programs that they have to pay out of pocket for the plane ticket or for the hotel, for the cost of food. And that's not how it is. These programs are absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. And I call it my brain reset because when I get into a spot to where I can't function or to where I'm having a hard time, I call up one of these retreats. Hey, put me on your list. Get me in. I want to do this. I've been to Missouri and done retreats. I've been to Texas and done retreats. There's one here in Florida called Quantum Leap that I go to frequently, and that one is in Odessa, Florida. And actually, I've become extremely close with the people that own and operate this program. And I've been thinking about hopping on and becoming a mentor with them. And, it's their 5-day retreats. And my husband calls it my retreatication. And it's really not a retreatication. It's really in-depth therapy. And you go from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. And it's therapy. And there could be, we do EMDR, or you can do the 30-30-30. There's yoga. There's all kinds of things that are out here. There's mala beads that you can use. If you're having an anxiety issue, you count the beads on the mala bead. And you get all of this stuff paid for completely. So you're in Montana or, California or wherever you are, veteran wise, you call up these retreats, and I have a list. I can send you in a whole.
I'll send it. I'll put it on my website. Please do.
Yeah. And I'll send you all of this stuff. And this is another thing that I do is I help veterans get into these retreats, and I help veterans pick out a retreat that's good for them. And I'm not licensed to do any of this, but I do it on the side because I don't want to see any more veterans kill themselves. I don't. And the retreats have been a godsend to me. I went to the one retreat in Missouri, and that's the first retreat that has broke me. I cried like a baby, and I don't cry like that. I'm not heartless. I'm emotionless now. And it broke me. It really did. And it put a whole new perspective of life into me. The retreat here at the Quantum Leap isn't as intense as the one is in Missouri, but they're all programmed differently. And this is an equine therapy retreat. So here in Florida. And equine therapy has been one of the best things that I've gotten into. And that's why I bought my horses, so it's all up to, I think, the specific individual and what they feel helps them or what they know helps them. These retreats are amazing. I highly recommend them. I do.
I've been talking about that recently kind of on my TikTok, but even just to people who I've been meeting who are still kind of struggling. And, like the first thing that the VA turns you towards, well, actually, I should say 2 things that they turn you towards is, some psychologist that doesn't understand anything that you've been through, and a psychiatrist who's just going to medicate you. And maybe that works for some people, but in my experience, it hasn't really worked wholeheartedly for anybody. So I've been encouraging people to explore the very many and various therapies that are out there. I mean, you named, I think, 5 to 10 just through that. And so Chelsea is an amazing resource, guys. And you can find her. I'm actually going to put her email in the description part of this podcast so that you can reach out to her. And if for some crazy reason you can't get in touch with her or you can't find her on social media, you can absolutely get a hold of me and I will put you in touch. And Chelsea, like, even just the fact of you being able to take everything that you've learned and absorbed and experienced over the years and turn it into a place that you can give back is amazing. And thank you so much for taking something that almost took you away, took you off this earth and forced you to leave us. and turn it into something positive to help others out of those dark spaces. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for doing what you do. And, I've been thinking about doing my TikTok, doing lives and trying to have, veteran chats, even on TikTok. I do it on my Facebook. I was doing it monthly, and I had a lot of veterans, and I do it for any vet. It doesn't matter if you're a Marine. It's for any veteran, because even if you've not seen combat, there's still a part of you that is missing because of that camaraderie that is gone. And,
Yeah.
that sense of purpose that is gone now. So I do these chats to try and bring more peace and more, closeness to people, so that they know that they have help and that there's somebody out there that's willing to help. I have people that call me at all hours of the night, all hours. Unless I'm sleeping and I don't hear my phone, I'll be more than happy to get up with you and talk to you. I'll talk you off the ledge. I'll talk your ear off until you're done wanting to do whatever it is that you're trying to do. As long as you don't hurt yourself, that's all that I care about. Because we matter. We do.
Well, you're an incredible human, an incredible woman. It's a pleasure to get to know you. We will absolutely stay in touch. I want to pick your brain in regards to my VA claim little journey that I'm taking here.
Yeah.
And yeah, guys, if you need to reach Chelsea, find her, email her. If you can't get a hold of her, let me know. Otherwise, again, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your vulnerability, your honesty, your feedback, all of it. We're just, one step closer to kind of leaving our mark in this history, because we as women, as combat veterans, really need to make sure that our narrative is written. So thank you for being a part of this journey with me.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.
All right.
Please like, comment, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this episode. And remember, there's always a lesson with every experience. It's up to you to learn and grow from it.